Now, you may be starting to realize this ongoing trend of those that once supported George Clooney are now turning their back against him. In specifics, of course, we know related to the 2024 loss, and how a lot of it had to do with his comments that really did not resonate with the general public. It really turned off a lot of people to the point where they can't even watch his past material anymore. Even fans that once watched his Oceans movies or Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, nobody wants to watch his films moving onwards as we get closer to 2025. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So, like I've said this before, whenever we talked about George Clooney, whenever we do go on about all of the issues surrounding this guy, is that it's basically best described as Clooney Tunes, because it's so crazy of what's going on with this actor and with this guy, and how so many people resent the person right now, and how there are more and more of those that once were considered his friend, or once considered those that endorsed him, that are now wanting to really separate their ways from him. Now, what's interesting about this has a lot more to do with George Clooney and Mark Cuban. You guys may very well know Mark Cuban. He is an American businessman. He's a billionaire who had multiple meltdowns throughout Q4 of 2024. And interestingly enough, we know now a lot of this has to do with his overall viewpoints on George Clooney, the latest individual, alright? The latest person in the public eye to turn against George Clooney. Is it really all that big of a shocker? Not so much to me, but the drama continues when it comes down to George. Now, continuing on top of everything here, what's really intriguing is that with the entire media and Hollywood already beginning to turn on each other since 5 weeks ago, one major development that is now going on involves more to do with American businessman and television personality Mark Cuban attacking George Clooney and going through yet another meltdown in the public eye. Cuban delivered the following in response to Clooney. "Our biggest mistake in 2024 was that we just weren't loud enough. We needed those like Mr. Clooney with a voice to remain brave and not cowardly by vanishing into the darkness and leaving us in the middle of nowhere for the next 4 years, where we are going to be dealing with things like misogyny and sexism as this form of acceptance into society, which is repulsive to me as an individual. Actors like Mr. Clooney to me seemingly came across as misleading to us who really wanted to win in 2024, and it was voices coming from those like him and others that I think provided us to become too overconfident with our competition. As a businessman, I can tell you that you learn to adapt, and with actors like Mr. Clooney, I think we need to stop relying on voices like him coming from such a large place that perhaps doesn't hold any real value or meaning to what we are trying to contribute to when it comes to our country. We have seen actors like Mr. De Niro and Clooney just go silent as if they don't exist anymore and don't care about the working person, and it makes you question everything about these guys. Looking ahead to 2028, I certainly have learned my lesson, because now we are going to have to deal with things like sexism and misogyny getting promoted by this man that wants to act like a king in our country, and I shall not remain, of course, in all of that. If we want to win in 2028, we need to focus less on individuals like Mr. Clooney that gave us this sense of overconfidence that we could really win this. We need to take that experience and use that as strength in 4 years from now, and hopefully not 8 or more. The only advice that I can give to Mr. Clooney right now is that you screwed up big time, and we need to focus on a new strategy. As a businessman who knows what success is like, we need to find an alternative way to get our message across, perhaps from people like me who really know how this country operates and how society functions." So guys, let me just say one thing about Mark Cuban. I really am yet another critic of this guy. I think that his meltdowns are hilarious. This is like the upteenth meltdown that he has had in 2024. He says the most absurd and ridiculous things to the general public, and of course on television, and wherever he goes, it seems like he's only digging himself a bigger hole. Now, one thing about Mark Cuban is that we know that he wants to, buy Twitter, or at least he's dreaming of buying X, formerly known as Twitter, which he will never be able to pull off. We all remember that whole thing between Elon Musk and Mark Cuban. Interestingly enough, though, the fact that you have a billionaire turning his back against George Clooney and wanting nothing to do with the guy, I think it just goes to show you, and it speaks volumes, just how large the backlash is against George Clooney, to the point where now you either have actors or businessmen or those that are in the public eye beginning to say, yeah, we don't want to associate with Mr. Clooney anymore. We don't want anything to do with George Clooney at all. It's either them hopping on a bandwagon and they're just doing it because it's a trend, or they deeply do believe that George Clooney did contribute to the 2024 loss. And we know that he did have an impact on that. There's no denying the fact about that, guys. But they are the ones that were actually rejecting that overall idea for so very long. There was a period in time just a month and a half ago, where they were like, yeah, George had nothing to do with that. George contributed nothing to the loss. And now it's all about, yeah, George did contribute to the loss. So they're flip-flopping yet again. Now, on top of that, he goes on to conclude, we all need to realize that we don't need actors with this status of Mr. Clooney or De Niro to get our message out there in the next 4 years, or perhaps even by the time we reach 2026. But what is exhausting to me is that we are going to have to live under somebody that wants to act like a king, who promotes sexism and misogyny and bigotry, and I will not mention his name. So this is just like Whoopi Goldberg. She doesn't want to mention his name at all. He actually goes on to conclude, I have some comments before in the past that I have made. Some I do apologize for, and others I still stand by and defend. But what we do not need are these top-tier actors telling us how to perform our strategy anymore as we look ahead to the future. I would say leave it up to people like us, who know how to handle a business and how to handle customers, of course, that's the strategy that where we need to go. So again, let me just say one thing about Mark Cuban. I think he's a very inauthentic person. He's very much disingenuous. He very much lies to the public. We've seen this time and time again. And this is like, what, the upteenth meltdown that he's had in the past 3-4 months, give or take. And now you have people like Bill Maher, Mark Cuban, Whoopi Goldberg, Sonny Hostin, so many others beginning to just say, yeah, George Clooney, we want nothing to do with you at all for the next, 4-8 years. And I think it's very revealing. It just goes to show you how the Hollywood bubble has collapsed. Actors are beginning to realize that they're really not as relevant as they once thought they were. People like Alec Baldwin and Sharon Stone, after they called, the American people uneducated and misinformed with everything. And that really turned off a lot of people as well. But yet again, Mark Cuban going on another meltdown, and more to come, I am sure, as we go into 2025. But I would like to hear what everyone has to say about George Clooney, because it's interesting, because now we have people like George Clooney, Robert De Niro, that were so outspoken that have just vanished. And that is one point that Mark Cuban did point out there. Not that I am in support of the guy, but it is something that he at least put forward and actually put out there as a fact. But overall, Mark Cuban, a terrible individual as far as I see things. And when you focus on the whole Hollywood, concept right now and how it's just vanishing month by month, I think it's all, well deserved. But overall, I would like to hear what you all have to say about this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.